TCU's Week 0 game versus North Carolina in Dublin could tell us everything we need to know about what version of TCU we're getting in 2026. Oh, yeah, it's Locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked on Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? I'm Darian Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day every day. We close out today's episode by taking a look at why disappointing and failure are two words that are unfortunate but accurate to describe TCU baseball in 2026. And I want to take a look at the impact of TCU's game versus North Carolina, both on the negative side if they were to lose in segment 2. But I want to kick it off with the impact of a victory in Week 0, a victory in Dublin. And I believe that if TCU is able to knock off North Carolina, this will be the confirmation needed to build confidence. At the end of the day, there is so much that we don't know about TCU. There is so much that we don't know about how players will perform. But if you come in and you play and you win against North Carolina, I think it's at least a strong floor. And I think it gives the confidence that you need because TCU does have some games early in their season that could be tough. I think that Scott Frost is a coach who's, respected. We'll see what he's able to make Central Florida into, but you got BYU early in your schedule. And on tomorrow's episode, we're going to look at some of the biggest games of the season, but you got a schedule that features BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, right? Like there's some hitters on this on the schedule. Let's not get it confused. Yeah, you don't want to go out there and lose to North Carolina because that's not going to make any optimism grow. But more importantly, I think winning makes you feel justified in all of the moves you made this offseason because you ended the season so strong. But I don't think it's going to take long for people to say, all right, what are we doing here? I don't think that this is and tell me if I'm wrong, right? Like I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the fan base. I don't think that TCU did enough in 2025 to close out the season to make people forget about the things that frustrated them at the beginning of the year. They can appreciate what happened at the end of the year. They can appreciate the bowl game and the Ken Seals of it all, right? Like you can appreciate that and you can feel like there's some things that could build upon for success in 2026. But I feel like if you come out and you look bad versus North Carolina, that benefit of the doubt kind of erases, especially if you look bad, right? Like there's one thing to lose, but if you look bad, I think that conversation shifts a little bit. So when I say confirmation to confidence, I mean you got Jaden Craig, a new quarterback. You want to feel like you have the right guy. I mean you have Jeremy Payne leading the way. You want to feel like he's able to be a bell cow. You have guys who are replacing Bud Clark, Caleb Elarms, or Nnamdi Obiazor. You have guys who are going to fill in at the not at the star position, but at the stud position, right? You have Jordan Dwyer who's going to have to come in and replace Eric McAllister, who is one of the more productive receivers in school history. Like you want to feel good about these changes that you made, and having this game go your way, I think suddenly changes the way that, not changes, confirmed. I think winning this game, especially if you win it handedly, it changes the way you look at the offseason. Not because you're questioning whether or not you got players, but now you feel like, I know it. I don't think many fans are in a questioning mood at the moment. I don't think many fans feel like, I just don't know about Dwyer. I just don't know about Craig. Maybe it's because it's spring. Maybe it's because these players have enough stock to where you're like, okay, I see it. Whatever the reason may be, TCU has created a belief in this team that to me felt impossible 6 months ago, 7 months ago, rather, right? Like at the beginning of November, you couldn't tell me that I'd be sitting here feeling so hopeful about this team going into next season. I just think that they have to start strong. You're going to get Arkansas State. You're going to get Grambling. You have to start strong when it comes to this season, because let's pull it up. Let's pull up the beginning of the schedule, because in the same way that North Carolina needs this win so that they can start off strong and they have tough games, this is TCU's schedule. And what's funny is it never really, like, you can have a 2-game period where it kind of slows down, but it never really gets calm for TCU. They go North Carolina week 0, first game of the season, North Carolina. Grambling after that, Arkansas. This is where it hits. This is where everything kind of hits the zone. UCF, BYU. You do get a bye week before you face Baylor. You go to Baylor. And I think Baylor is a team that we probably need to give a little bit more attention to. I'm going to try to see if we can find some sort of crossover to talk about what's changed in the DJ Lagway department, right? Like, I kind of want to talk about that with Baylor. But then you go West Virginia, Kansas, and maybe you feel like those teams aren't going to be as difficult of matchups. Maybe. But by this point, you're already 3 Big 12 games in. You're already facing BYU, who's returning a lot of talent, most importantly, Bear Bachmeier. You already face Baylor, who is going to be a tough game because they're Baylor. Just at the end of the day, 90% of, or I'm not even going to say give a percentage. I go into every rivalry game expecting it to be tough, even if I think I'm going to win. It's a rivalry, so you just don't expect it to come easy. Win, but not going to come easy. And I think they've made some improvements specifically at the quarterback position. You have DJ Lagway, who is a very high ceiling player. Very high ceiling player. You kind of need that North Carolina game to go your way, because let's say you lose to North Carolina. Let's say you lose to the Tar Heels. You get through Grambling, you get through Arkansas State. We expect that. Let's even say you get through UCF, but then you get beat up by Baylor. Get beat up by BYU, excuse me. You going into that Baylor game, hype because it's Baylor, but don't let you lose that. Now you're looking at a situation where you've missed so many opportunities. Things start to feel make or break. You want the Gordon Samus hire to feel good. You want the Craig pickup to feel good. You want the Dykes extension to feel good. Like, at the end of the day, beating North Carolina is not going to be your end-all, be-all. It doesn't impact your standing as far as the Big 12 goes. If you lose to North Carolina, I kind of feel like we won't be talking about playoffs, just to be honest. That's just how I feel. I don't think we're going to be talking about playoffs if you lose to North Carolina. I'm trying not to get too much into the losing aspect, trying to stick more so to the win. But at the end of the day, week 0, week 1, however, whichever one your first game is, really that whole beginning of the schedule, you just want to see a team that looks like the team you think they could be. That's every university. Texas Tech just won the Big 12. They're not going to have Brendan Sorsby. When they face their first challenge, they want to look like the team they think they could be. And this establishes a floor, because North Carolina is not going to be one of the best teams in the country, in my opinion, and they wouldn't be one of the best teams in the Big 12. So if you win this game, it gives you the confirmation you need that at least we're solid. It gives you the floor you need to feel like at least I know we can beat a Power 4 school. And then you start playing your Big 12 lineup. I think that's all it is. I don't want to put too much weight on week 0. I don't. I think it's very important, though. If you lose, now things get a little bit shaky, but I think it's only shaky for fans. Let's get into why I say that as I continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. With the workplace chaos and deadlines stacking up and inbox overflowing, the one position you still need to fill is open. It's when pressure gets on and you need the right hire. That's a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for from a skills, experience, location standpoint. So you're not just hoping that the right candidate stumbles across your post. Here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I'm talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, what is the holdup? Spend less time searching, more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes. So now you get less stress, less time used, and more results. We need a person that cuts through the chaos. It's a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show get $75 in sponsored job credit to get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Go to Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, let's flip the script and look at the other side of the coin. Let's look at the losing side of the coin. What does that mean for TCU? I want to dig into that a little bit, and I would love to hear what you think. So go to lockedonhornedfrogs.supercast.com, $5 a month. Get access to in-depth analysis that we're not bringing to the podcast. Get access to me on a one-to-one line. If you have any question, you want to talk about something, you want to say, hey, man, I think that shirt you was wearing was kind of fly today. All right, man. That take you gave on Friday, I've been sitting with it for a week. I know you may not see it now on those comments. I've been sitting with it for a week. I don't necessarily see it that way. Boom. Let me know. Let's talk about it back and forth. I think that if TCU loses, it's a huge uh-oh moment for fans. And I want to emphasize fans here. I kind of spoke to North Carolina's players when I talked about how it could be dangerous for their confidence. I think that North Carolina was terrible. Newsflash, North Carolina wasn't good in 2025. But they had Bill Belichick, and there was so much pressure for you to get it right away. And from people I hear who are close to that program, Bill might not be the guy for college ball, period, right? And I don't think that's exclusive to people close to the program. But it just doesn't seem like everything that is going on in there is the way that it should be ran by those who are closer to past years, right? I'll say it that way. I don't know how much of a confidence they have in their coach at this period. I don't know if I can sit here and tell you that Bill Belichick is safe. I don't know if I can tell you that everybody's buying in. So when you're looking at this and you're thinking, man, my coach, as great as he is, right now he feels like somebody who is over his head. Right now he feels like somebody who is just not where he's supposed to be. You may begin to lose confidence. You may begin to lose faith. You may lose interest, and you may check out. I think those are all real fears for North Carolina if they lose to TCU. The thing about the Frogs, I don't think any of that is real. I think Dykes has them completely bought in. I think that I have criticized many things that Sonny Dykes has done over the years. One thing I will not criticize is it does seem as if he is connected with his locker room. Doesn't feel like he loses the guys. You know, that's just how I feel. I feel like he lost Hoover. I do feel like that happened. But for the most part, it doesn't feel like Dykes is losing locker rooms. It doesn't feel like Dykes is not understanding of who his team is. If TCU loses, I don't think their confidence goes out the window. But I did kind of lean into this a little bit on segment one. I do think that if TCU loses, fans could get concerned. I don't think a loss to North Carolina is going to make people say, I don't know about this Samus guy. His offense is terrible in week one. Right? Like, I don't think that a loss to North Carolina is going to make people say, there's no way Jaden Craig. And when I say people in these times, let me be more clear. I don't think a week 0 loss to North Carolina is going to make players say, this system doesn't work. I don't think it's going to make players say Jaden Craig doesn't have it. Of course, on the latter, things could be really bad and you start questioning that. There is a world in which you question it because things were so bad, right? Like, I don't think that happens, though. I think if you lose, you're probably moderately bad. I've said it before. I'll say it 2 times. I'll say it 1,000,000 times. I don't think the TCU in week 0 in Dublin is going to be the TCU that we see in November 14th versus Kansas State. Like, I don't think so. I think that not just from an athletic standpoint, not just from a pure personnel standpoint where you're saying, oh, well, I don't know if this guy's going to be healthy. All that aside, everybody's healthy. I don't think this is the same team because I think there's going to be some growing pains. And maybe that growing pain looks like losing to North Carolina. And I think for fans, oh man, it's just the same old, same old. They not ready to take that next step because nobody thinks North Carolina is worth a doggone. Nobody. And that's the beautiful part about college football regular season, specifically at the beginning, when we don't know anything. This isn't like this in the pros, right? Like sometimes teams aren't as good as they were the year before. Sometimes teams are better than they were the year before in the NFL. But at the same time, I think there's more concrete things to go by. So I think that volatility is a tad bit different. But when you look at college ball, when you look at college football, the first time you play a team that's in the Power Four, we all judge you based on who we think that team to be. Let me elaborate. Let me be more specific in this case. If TCU goes out there and they lose to North Carolina, who's a team that people don't think is going to be that good, that equates to TCU not being that good. And that's a stigma that'll carry on. And if you lose to North Carolina, fans will be constantly using that as the bar that you have to disprove. And when I say that, I mean, TCU loses to North Carolina. You beat North Carolina, you beat UCF, but then you lose to BYU. See, ain't nothing. Let's even say that you lose to BYU and people accept it. You're always chasing that big game now because you lost in the first one where people feel like, oh, you're not that good. So now you have to prove it. And the only way to prove it is to beat a team that's clearly better than what North Carolina has to offer. The only way to beat a team or the only way to erase the stigma of questions is to sustain success. Even if you beat a BYU, you go and you lose to Baylor, and no one's really trying to hear it. And we'll see who Baylor is at that point. I actually don't know that Baylor is going to be trash. I don't. I hold out this hope, man. I was a DJ Lagway guy at a period of time. Shh, don't tell nobody. But I was for a period of time. I wasn't a period. For a period of time, I felt like DJ Lagway had such promise. I felt like he was going to deliver on it. He just didn't. Doesn't mean I don't think he has promise still. I still think that that ability is there. It's just a matter of a lot of times guys at 5 stars or guys who get drafted and end up not being that good. A lot of times these players, their problem is not how good they are. It's how often they can be how good they are. Because you see these flashes, oh man, he made this play, but he just doesn't do it often enough. That's a lot of times, that's a lot of critiques of high draft picks, high recruits. You see the flashes of what they could be, just can they be it consistently? And most times the answer is no. But when I look at TCU, I think that the unknown, the uncertainty, all of these things that I kind of lay out, it's a gift and a curse, if I can quote Adrian Monk. It's a gift and a curse. Because the gift is, well, we don't know what they're going to be. Maybe it's less to prepare for. It's the gift aspect is a little bit more difficult because the gift is essentially the gift of optimism, right? Like that's why it's harder to really describe because it's blind faith of a sort. Hey, they just got this great safety. He's going to be great. They just got this guy at linebacker. He's going to be great, right? Like you go in with rose-colored glasses. You go in and you say, hey, man, everybody that our team picked up, it doesn't have to be specific to the Frogs. Everybody our team picked up is going to hit. Rarely happens that way, but it's how we feel almost every offseason, especially if we like the class. Sometimes we're so dud. It's like so pessimistic on the players. It's like, oh, this is a dud. I don't care. But when you feel good, you just feel like, oh, okay, everything's going to work out. So that's the gift. The gift is blind faith. The gift is optimism. The gift is potential always being greater than production because they can always potentially produce more. But the curse is a lot of times it takes time to dwell. The curse is a lot of times it takes time to gel. A lot of times that wide receiver needs a little bit of time to get acclimated. That backfield that has multiple defensive backs that are due needs time to grow. So when I say that TCU in week 1, week 0 for them and Dublin is not going to be the same team that we see in November, it's not because of health. It's because of maturation. It's because of growth. It's because of development. So it's almost unfair to judge a team based on who they were in the first game of the season. But luckily for us, it's college football and everything's unfair. So we're, of course, going to do it. We're, of course, going to break it down. I'm just a part of that group. I like it. I like it, you know? So that's the way I look at it. But let's move forward and take a look at baseball, because baseball flat out was a disappointment. And I think that's putting it mild. I think it may be more accurate to say that TCU baseball in 2026 was a failure. Let's get into it as we continue and close out today's episode of Locked on Horned Frogs. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked on Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. TCU baseball failed this season. And I struggle sometimes to say that just because it feels very harsh. It feels kind of ununderstanding. I don't feel like misunderstanding is accurate. I don't feel like ununderstanding sounds right, but whatever. Who cares? It sounds ununderstanding of the reasoning behind it. But as you go through TCU baseball, you look at it and say, man, this season was disappointing essentially from start to finish. From start to finish, this was a disappointing season. You look at how they fared against teams in the Big 12, specifically towards the top of the Big 12, and you can't help but sit there and say, I mean, what are we doing? You know, you struggled against Kansas. You get to West Virginia and you lose guys like Snyder. You lose guys like Brunson, right? You lose big guys in your rotation. It's just like, man, again. But then you feel like you're right there. And sometimes the disappointment is, I wish that guy could have been available. But here's the thing. You get to that Oklahoma State series, disappointing, because you're beating up on some guys that are low ranked. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're a Demon Slayer fan, you're knocking off all of these lower ranked demons. Once you get to the upper ranked demons, you realize the Hashira ain't killed one in years, and there's a reason why. It's much more difficult. It's much more difficult. Sometimes you're up for the challenge. Sometimes you're not. And TCU wasn't. And just like if you weren't ready for that upper rank in Demon Slayer, it's the end of your story. That's why TCU didn't make it to March Madness. Or excuse me, they didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. That's why TCU didn't make it to the NCAA tournament. And I think that was kind of the cherry on top. Because had you made it, then maybe you could say, oh, people understood all of the unfortunate circumstances that we had to deal with. But instead, you were told that's not enough. The things you dealt with, how you battled against them, wasn't enough. So to me, as I look at it and I go every step of the way, I'm just like, man. And let me go through some of the games that particularly did it for me. It's the fact that you started off number 10 in the country, and then you beat Vanderbilt, you beat Arkansas. You win those 2 games at Globe Life, and it's great. Then you lose to Oklahoma. Then you lose to UTA, excuse me. Then you get swept by UCLA. Right? Like now things start looking different, because you beat Vanderbilt, you beat Arkansas as a team that's expected to be one of the best in the country. Oh, it's accurate. Start a party. Start 2-0. It's strong. And then you end up missing the NCAA tournament for the second year in 3 years. Vanderbilt dub, Arkansas dub. That Oklahoma dub brushed it off. That that Oklahoma loss brushed it off. That UTA loss, that was tough. Then you start getting into your conference schedule, right? And it's funny because you do play Kansas and you beat Kansas. So like there's something that feels good about that. But then you go right back to Arizona State, lose that 2-1. You play UCF, lose that 2-1. You get Texas Tech, who's not one of the better teams. You sweep them. You get Kansas State. You win two out of the three. So you go 2-1 in that series. You win. Okay, cool. We putting together some momentum. But then you get to a team like Arizona, loss, win, loss. Boom, you fail in that one. You get to Baylor. Baylor not great. Baylor not great. You win that series. You get to Houston. They're terrible. 3-0. Sweep that series. And everything feels like you're coming together now. You're coming together. You didn't got to win off on Arizona. Not that Arizona's great. And that's the other thing. Like, you lose that because Arizona's one of the worst teams. I was confusing them with Arizona State. But Arizona's one of the worst teams. You lose to that. You lose that series, excuse me. But then you put together the Baylor series. You put together the Houston series. And you're feeling good. But then you get to Oklahoma, which was a litmus test, and deflated. You get to Utah, bounce back, cool. Get to West Virginia, it feels like, oh man, disappointing because it was right at your fingertips. Being close to pulling off an upset sometimes hurts more than just losing to a team that was supposed to beat you. Because now you're thinking about what could have been. Oh man, if I just would have had that one play. If that just would have. When you lose to a team that you're supposed to lose to and you lose comfortably, whatever, you're supposed to lose. But when you are close to pulling off the upset, which they were against West Virginia, and had you done it, you'd have been in the NCAA tournament probably. But you were close, and you start asking yourself, man, what could have been? Was it just the injuries? Was it more than just the injuries? And then you get to Kansas State in the Big 12 tournament, and you lose game one. Game one, they handle you. Just disappointment littered everywhere. And that's why I say that's why I consider it to be a failure. Because it was too frequent. It was too many moments to point to. That Oklahoma State series, how you lose the West Virginia series, losing to Arizona, falling in the first game of the Big 12 tournament. Everything was disappointing, and I know there's reasons. I know there's reasons behind it, but it just feels like a failure, and I don't think the reasons disqualify it from being called that. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, we'll be back tomorrow to talk about some of the biggest games on the schedule. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.